I want you to just take a second and picture yourself stepping cautiously down into the earth.
It's a very heavy image right from the start.
It really is. Imagine the smell of it, that thick, damp soil layered over these ancient, undisturbed secrets. You look up, and the ceiling is just this raw, jagged mountain rock.
Oh, and water dripping down, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Water dripping down, forming these stalactites that look like frozen storm clouds suspended in a perpetual fall. There's no warmth here, just the absolute suffocating weight of silence.
It's the kind of atmosphere that tells you instantly that you've crossed a boundary. You're
Right.
no longer in the world of the living, but in this space where time simply waits.
And that heavy subterranean silence is basically exactly where we're beginning today's deep dive.
Setting the stage for something big.
We are exploring the serialized dark fantasy epic Chasing Death. Specifically, we're breaking down the mechanics and the profound implications of episode 38.
Currency of time.
Yes, Currency of Time. If you've been following the lore, you know the stakes are already incredibly high. But today, our mission is to examine a singular, pivotal sequence.
It's a high-stakes tale of supernatural bargains, desperate tactical deceptions, and, well, the terrifying price of true leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really is a masterclass in tension. It asks these fundamental questions about what we're willing to trade when we have absolutely no good options left.
Not at all.
But before we get into the mechanics of immortal pacts and ancient war, I want you, listening right now in the dark, to think about a specific feeling.
It's a very relatable kind of dread.
It
Yeah.
is. Have you ever been backed completely into a corner where you had to make a promise, a massive, life-altering promise, and deep down, you weren't entirely sure you could survive keeping it?
That is the core psychological tension we're exploring today.
Yeah.
Making a vow in the daylight, surrounded by your allies, is one thing. Standing alone in the dark, bargaining with an entity that fundamentally despises your existence is, well, it's something entirely different.
So let's look at how our protagonist, Zayn, handles that exact scenario. He descends into this desolate temple
A
basement.
very unwelcoming place.
Put it mildly. But the walls of this place, they aren't just blank stone or, decorative ruins.
No, the text describes them as being carved with this painstaking precision.
Right, into a visual record that rests right on the border between scripture and nightmare.
The architecture itself is doing so much heavy lifting here to build psychological dread.
It really is.
I mean, the carvings start out somewhat terrestrially. You see a goddess in a posture of eternal supplication, or a king hunting in a dense forest.
But then the narrative carved into the stone just rapidly descends into absolute brutality.
And it does so with this unnerving calmness.
Yeah, Ziud is studying panels that show a funeral pyre slowly consuming a human corpse. He sees another carving of a deity presiding over a massive human sacrifice.
And the priests in the stone have these grim, highly practiced expressions.
Like ritual slaughter is just mundane paperwork for them.
Exactly. But as Zayn studies these horrors, he notices a repeating motif.
Right, in every single scene, no matter the context, there's a woman with long, flowing hair.
And she is never a passive observer. In the most harrowing panel on that wall, she's depicted as a monstrous goddess, physically seizing human figures with massive claws and just hurling them into a roaring inferno.
Which is terrifying. And what's crucial for the lore here is Zayn's realization. He recognizes the facial structure. She bears a striking resemblance to the goddess Baltus.
He realizes, with this cold certainty, that he is walking directly into the domain of her sister.
A sister who has been condemned to wander these ruins for untold centuries. So Zayn finds the center of the room. There's a single hole in the ceiling letting in a thin, pale beam of light.
Illuminating a raised dais.
Yeah, and on it sits this weathered, broken statue of a great buffalo with wicked horns. Zayn steadies himself, looks up, and calls out.
"Oh, sister of the goddess Baltus, I have come to meet you."
And the environment's immediate response is pure, visceral horror. A massive colony of bats just erupts from the crevices in the ceiling.
The text describes their wings beating like a storm of dry leaves. It genuinely startles him.
But he forces himself to hold his ground. He calls out a second time, then a third. And on the final syllable of his invocation, the earth literally tears open.
A roaring, luminous pillar of fire surges toward the ceiling.
And when the flames vanish, she's there, poached right on the broken statue.
She is the manifestation of those brutal stone carvings made flesh. She has red eyes that radiate actual physical heat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wild, tangled hair, fangs curling over her lip. She is the living embodiment of ancient malice.
And she doesn't even speak. She just fixes him with this devouring, hateful gaze, raises a hand, and spits a ball of concentrated fire from the statue's mouth.
But it rolls right up to Zayn's feet and just
Stops, anchored right there. She tries to force it forward, and it won't move. She shrieks in frustration, and suddenly, plunging from the ceiling, is a bird the size of an elephant with a needle-like beak.
It circles his head, screaming, before vanishing into the shadows.
It's just a relentless onslaught of sensory terror.
It is.
But if we pause and look at the mechanics of this universe, we have to ask, what is her actual strategy here? Why this specific sequence of theatrical hacks?
Well, let me push back on that for a second. If she's a spirit of the deep earth and she wants him gone, why not just collapse the ceiling on him?
Right, why the giant bird and the fireballs? Zayn eventually smiles, pulls out a ring, and says he was sent by her sister, Baltus. We know the ring is acting as a supernatural shield.
But how does that shield actually function against a collapsing cave?
Okay.
That is the perfect question, and it gets to the heart of how magic operates in this lore.
Okay, break that down for us.
The Ring of Baltus is a localized, absolute supernatural barrier. It nullifies direct magical violence. The text notes her magic has absolutely no hold over him while he possesses that ring.
So she can't crush him, she can't burn him.
Exactly. So her only remaining weapon is psychological warfare.
She needs him to break his own protection.
Precisely. She's attempting to shatter his nerve. She wants to induce a panic so profound that his mind fractures, or he drops the ring, or he simply turns and flees the sanctuary of the cave.
So she summons a flaming spear that spins furiously directly toward his skull.
And Zayn doesn't even flinch. The spear just dies as it breaches his proximity, hitting the ground as charred, harmless wood.
She throws a burning stone. It lands cold. She summons this monstrous, multi-tongued, fire-breathing serpent that rushes him, only to violently recoil as if it slammed into an invisible wall of solid granite.
She's trying to squander his time and erode his resolve through sheer, overwhelming visual terror.
I was trying to conceptualize what that actually feels like mechanically.
Oh, yeah.
It's like stepping into a pitch-black ancient museum. Suddenly, the most terrifying, lethal exhibits all come alive and launch themselves directly at your face at full speed.
The terrifying thought.
But you're standing behind a sheet of flawless, invisible, bulletproof glass. Intellectually, you know the glass will hold. You know you're safe.
But the biological instinct is to close your eyes, to duck.
Right. To flinch when a monster slams into the barrier an inch from your nose. Overriding that instinct requires a terrifying level of composure.
Composure is the exact right word. It's an inhuman level of stillness. And it's that stillness that finally forces the spirit to stop.
The aggression just drains out of her.
Replaced by a very reluctant, cautious curiosity, she finally asks him, quietly, who he actually is.
And this is where the entire dynamic of the scene flips. All the magical fire and giant birds in the world couldn't shift the power dynamic in that room.
No, what finally brings this ancient, terrifying entity to her knees is a simple introduction.
Zayn looks at her and says, I am the son of the Egyptian pharaoh Zenon, and I have lived for 2,000 years.
The effect is instantaneous. This monstrous spirit physically climbs down from the dais and bows low before him.
She calls him a holy man and offers herself as his servant.
Just like that, the monster is tamed.
I need to stop you there, though, because from a listener's perspective, that is a massive leap. Well, why does an ancient demonic spirit of the deep earth care about Egyptian royalty? I mean, a pharaoh is a big deal to humans, but why does a centuries-old monster immediately bow to a guy just because he's 2,000 years old?
It's a brilliant piece of world building, honestly. It highlights a crucial hierarchy in this mythological framework.
Okay.
In this universe, magical authority isn't just about throwing fireballs. It's tied to age and, more importantly, to enduring suffering.
Enduring suffering.
Yeah. When Zayn reveals his identity, the spirit brings up a prophecy regarding the great Lord Iblis. She states that Zayn carries a specific curse.
Right. He's condemned to remain in the low places of the world.
Exactly. Absorbing and bearing the sorrows and suffering of humanity without end.
So his immortality isn't a gift. It's basically a sponge for human misery.
That's a dark way to put it, but yes. And because he has carried 2 millennia of human sorrow, his dark power, his spiritual gravity, if you will, has grown to far surpass her own. She bows not to his royal blood, but to the sheer crushing weight of his existence. He is a greater creature of the dark than she is.
which gives him the leverage to explain his mission. He tells her that Nebuchadnezzar, the cruel king of Babylon, is preparing to invade and systematically destroy a weakened Yemen.
Zayn needs her to use her power over the deep earth to shatter this invading army.
And because he acknowledges his need and comes to her respectfully, despite outranking her in this cosmic hierarchy, she agrees to stand with him.
But she binds her help to a single condition.
And it is staggering. She looks at him and says, "You must give me 2,000 years of your life."
And Zayn, he accepts. The text shows no hesitation. He simply says, I accept.
How does a person even begin to do the mental math on a transaction like that? How do you calculate the value of 2 millennia?
It is an almost incomprehensible exchange. And this brings us to the core thesis of the chapter, the currency of time. For a mortal, 20 years is a generation. 100 years is a lifetime. 2,000 years is the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Empires turn to dust in that span.
But for an immortal burdened with endless sorrow, time is incredibly complex.
It is both his greatest weapon and his heaviest, most exhausting curse.
He walks out of that damp, dripping cave into the open air and tells himself the bargain is not too costly.
He rationalizes that if carving away 2,000 years of his lifespan spares the oppressed people of Yemen, it's a price he can easily pay.
We have to view this as a profound allegory for leadership, don't we? True leadership, in its purest form, demands an internal toll.
He is literally trading his own existence to purchase the survival of strangers. It redefines what currency actually is.
Gold, silver, territory, they mean absolutely nothing to these ancient entities.
No, time and suffering are the only coins that carry weight on a cosmic scale.
But, you can buy a demonic spirit with your own time, but a supernatural contract doesn't put actual swords in the hands of soldiers.
That's the cold reality.
When Zayn walks out of that cave into the daylight, he's still a general with a starving army. How does a dark bargain in a basement translate into the mechanics of mortal politics and ancient warfare?
As you might expect, the transition to reality is brutally unforgiving. 2 days after the pact, Zayn's allies, Yurka and Ashur, arrive.
And Ashur, who serves as the tactical mastermind of their forces, delivers a devastating reality check.
Ashur deals in logistics, not visions. He tells Zayn the grim facts. Their forces have dwindled rapidly due to hunger and despair.
They only have barely 1,000 men who are currently having to sneak into the city of Nineveh disguised as common merchants just to avoid detection.
Meanwhile, Nebuchadnezzar commands a massive, organized force. He has war beasts, siege engines, catapults, and fire throwers.
Ashur explicitly warns Zayn that Nebuchadnezzar moves on the momentum and arrogance of a dozen consecutive victories.
Ashur is the necessary voice of grounded reason here. He represents the physical limitations of the world.
He warns Zayn that even if, by some miracle, they manage to take Nineveh from the inside, Nebuchadnezzar will simply return with his main force and plow the city into the earth.
By every conventional military metric, this is an unwinnable scenario.
But Zayn's response is just this unshakable, terrifying certainty. He says, "We will hand Nebuchadnezzar a defeat that breaks him."
Ashur is completely baffled. He asks if they have some secret, undisclosed treaty with Egypt or Greece.
Zayn says no, but he insists they are not alone. And then Zayn gives his general a chilling instruction for their upcoming strategy meeting with their supposed ally, King Hammurabi.
He tells Ashur to look the king dead in the eye and lie to his face.
Just a bold-faced lie.
He instructs his general to claim they have 10,000 heavily equipped men currently hidden in the cave system surrounding Nineveh.
This requires sheer, unadulterated nerve. It's a political maneuver built entirely on a void.
Think about the mechanics of a high-stakes poker bluff.
Right. It's not just about lying that you have a good hand. It's about betting so aggressively and projecting such absolute confidence that the other player's psychological framework collapses.
You make them doubt their own reality.
Zayn is forcing Ashur to sit across from a powerful king, holding a pair of twos, and bet his entire kingdom with the absolute unwavering conviction that he holds a royal flesh.
It's brilliant, but we really have to analyze the delicate architecture of alliances here. Ashur pushes back.
He feels it's fundamentally wrong to manipulate an ally, to let Hammurabi march into a war under a complete delusion.
But Zayn understands something deeper about the psychology of power. Hammurabi is the linchpin.
Let's pull on that thread, though. I understand needing morale, but Hammurabi's confidence doesn't magically deflect a fire thrower. If Nebuchadnezzar shows up with catapults, a lie won't hold the walls.
Physically, no. But politically, it changes everything. Zayn snaps back at Asher, saying, "If you show Hammurabi our weakness now, you will undo everything."
Zayn knows that if the king senses they only have 1,000 starving men, he'll calculate the odds, lose heart, and likely surrender the city to Nebuchadnezzar to save his own skin.
They desperately need the king's total commitment to trigger a citywide revolt among the citizens. In warfare, belief creates reality.
Ah, so the deception isn't malicious, it's a structural necessity.
Exactly.
If Hammurabi believes they have an invisible army of 10,000 men waiting in the wings, he'll command his current forces with the aggression of a man who knows he cannot lose.
And that aggression is contagious. It will spread to the soldiers, to the merchants, to the citizens on the street.
Asher, despite his deep misgivings about the military calculus, understands the political necessity of the move. They go before the king, and Asher executes the deception flawlessly.
He sells it completely. He doesn't just give the number. He adds logistical details to make the lie heavy.
He assures the king that these 10,000 invisible troops have enough rations and equipment for a solid month of heavy fighting.
The king is delighted. The lie is planted deep in the soil of Nineveh.
And as darkness falls over the city, the text gives us this incredible cinematic sequence. We see loyal soldiers, still dressed in their merchant disguises, quietly and methodically filtering into the royal palace.
By the early, silent hours of the morning, a royal residence has been completely transformed into a hidden, lethal garrison.
Everything on the mortal side of the board is meticulously set. The trap is primed. But Zayn is leaving one crucial apocalyptic element entirely out of his own control.
And that realization leads us into the deep, unforgiving hours of the night.
The adrenaline of the lie to the king fades away, and the cold reality of the math sets in. Zayn is lying in the dark, and he cannot sleep.
He realizes the absolute staggering madness of what he has just initiated.
He has staked thousands of human lives, the fate of an entire city, on the word of a malevolent spirit.
A spirit that, as his mind helpfully reminds him, tried to burn him alive and shatter his sanity less than an hour before agreeing to help.
Yeah, he's potentially walked 1,000 loyal men into a localized slaughterhouse based on a conversation in a basement.
It's haunting.
I think anyone listening can connect to this specific brand of terror. It's that midnight anxiety.
Oh, definitely.
That creeping cold dread when the house is entirely silent and your mind just starts spiraling. You realize you've made a choice, you've pushed all your chips to the center of the table, and you are past the point of no return.
The what-ifs become deafening.
Imagine that universal feeling, but instead of worrying about a career choice, you are worrying about the imminent massacre of a city.
The psychological weight of leadership is actively crushing him in that moment. He cannot tolerate the ambiguity. He needs certainty.
So, unable to endure the silence of his room, he slips out of the palace, mounts his horse, and rides back out into the dark, returning to the deserted temple.
He stands in that damp basement and calls her out again.
The earth tears, the pillar of fire erupts, and the spirit appears. She seems almost surprised to see him back so soon.
But Zayn's voice is completely steady in the dark. He looks at this ancient monster and tells her, "I am a man of my word. But hear me clearly. If you fail us on that field, I will pursue you to the furthest reaches of the abyss, and I will have my reckoning."
It's a fascinating, desperate threat. But let's look at the reality. What leverage does he actually have?
Almost none. If she abandons him on the battlefield, the army is dead, the city falls, and he has failed.
The threat is born of a pure desperation.
But her response is what provides the emotional climax of this entire narrative sequence. She doesn't get angry at his insolence. She lets out a laugh that the text describes as shaking the physical walls of the cave.
A sound like something vast and cold splitting open. She looks down at him and says, "When spirits make a vow of this gravity, we keep it."
This is a massive revelation regarding the cosmic law of this universe.
How so?
The spirit is not bound by human concepts of goodness, loyalty, or morality. She's bound by the unbreakable physical architecture of supernatural pacts. She explains that it costs spirits greatly to keep these vows, a fundamental price that mortals cannot perceive. But the most crucial detail she reveals is the nature of his payment.
Right, the 2,000 years of his life. She tells him that the debt does not pass to her. She cannot collect that time until she has completely fulfilled her part of the bargain.
The transaction isn't valid until the battle is definitively won.
This changes everything for Zayn. It completely reframes his understanding of the risk.
The atmosphere in the cave shifts entirely. The religious menace dissolves into something far heavier, far more profound.
An irrevocable reality.
The gears of the universe have engaged. The contract is signed in the ether, and she is just as bound to it as he is.
The tension just drains out of him. Zayn simply says, "That is all I needed. I am satisfied."
She vanishes back into the earth.
And as he rides his horse back to the palace, the first gray suggestion of dawn touches the horizon. The text notes that a strange calm settled over him, quiet and unhurried.
The breaking of dawn is highly symbolic here. It represents Zayn's ultimate acceptance of his fate.
The time for deliberation, for pacing the floors, is over.
The agonizing anxiety of choice has been replaced by the cold, heavy calm of consequence.
He had gambled his very existence. 2,000 years he would never ever recover. For people who did not know his name, who would not live long enough to learn it.
And who would never understand what he bought for them in the dark.
He watches the sky lighten and feels absolutely no doubt whatever was coming was already in motion.
The pieces are now irrevocably set on the board. The hidden garrison of merchants is armed and in place.
The brilliant, structurally necessary lie has been fully adopted by a king.
And a demonic spirit of the deep earth is magically bound to a battlefield that has not yet seen a single drop of blood.
An impossible war is in motion. It's an incredible study in narrative tension and the burdens of power.
It really is.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive into Chasing Death, I want to bring that heavy atmosphere back to you, the listener.
Consider the unseen costs of the bargains we make in the dark, away from the eyes of our allies.
Think about the crushing weight of responsibility when others rely entirely on your nerve, when you have to sit across the table and bluff with absolute conviction.
Knowing that failure means catastrophe for the people you lead. Beyond the military tactics and the supernatural magic systems, there's a quiet, devastating sacrifice at the very center of this chapter.
It asks us to define what our own currency truly is.
Exactly.
So I will leave you to linger on this final, quiet question in the dark. If you possessed endless time, centuries stretching out infinitely before you, would you trade them?
Would you willingly carve away 2,000 years of your own existence to save strangers who will never even know you existed?
Does the ultimate value of a life come from how long it lasts, or what you are willing to spend it on? Think about it the next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the dark.